Yeah.
Okay, let's get into this and we'll see how it goes. This is going to be our trial run at it. So everything should go smoothly, as always, chat. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new podcast on the Kyle Dempster Studios Network. You are listening to Mysteries of Chaos and Shadow. My name is Kyle, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Pagan Wolf. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. And thank you for joining me on this endeavor. For
I'm
those...
kidding. I was so excited when you asked.
Right? For those that don't know us, we're both Twitch streamers, and we've been friends for a very long time now. I don't even know how long, but we...
Over a year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's been over a year at this point. And so we came together with this idea recently. I'd been wanting to make a paranormal podcast. Pagan, you're into all things paranormal. And so immediately we just clicked on this idea.
We did. And it's so funny that literally we got into a Discord call. God, what was it? 2-3 months ago we realized, oh man, we just kind of jive with this paranormal vibe. And we just kind of realized that we were kinfolk at that point with the paranormal stuff, and it was great. So, Kyle's kind of been my spooky brother from across the country, so it's been great.
Very, very true. And by the way, we should shout out if people want to watch this show. It's going to be we're kind of working on doing this on Twitch. We have more details hopefully for you soon, but we're working on just different ways to integrate live audience stuff. So we might look into having some news submissions for the show if you have specific things you want us to tackle. We may have things including Twitch polls, and we're going to just work on that over time. It's not going to just be this thing we dump on you overnight, but we're going to develop it. I should also call out, we got some rainy kind of spooky thunder music in the background going on for chat here. We're going to mess around with that sort of stuff too, see what sort of vibe we can get you set up for. But huge thanks to our friend Clerical Apathy for this wonderful overlay.
I know, he did such a good job.
Yeah, and we'll give you all the things you can find us at the end, but we want to get into some meat on this episode too. We don't want to just do introductory. So we kind of told people a little bit about what we're about. We got together and have talked on calls, just enjoying all things supernatural. But you kind of had the name for this show, and how'd that come to you, Pagan?
Oh dear. Okay, so it was a full moon. I did my full moon right and all that good stuff. And I was in my deep meditation and communing with my gods. I'm a pagan, I'm a witch, I'm a psychic medium, I do it all. I'm a jack of all trades. And so in my meditation, I was like, I asked my gods, I was like, give me some insight into my future, where this is the road I want to go down. And I was mostly talking about just my art business. I wasn't even talking about podcasts or Twitch or nothing else. I just wanted, let's focus on this art business and build this. And then I get this title in my brain, and it's The Mysteries of Chaos and Shadow. And at first I'm like, y'all don't want me to write a witchy book, do you? Because please, no, just no. I don't want to do it. I've written books before. I just didn't want to do it. I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And literally, I'm sitting here working on a painting, Kyle's streaming, and then he's just like, Pagan, I got something I need to talk to you about. And I knew in that instant that he was going to ask me to do this podcast. Before he even talked about it, before he even mentioned it, I knew it. And I'm like, he's going to ask me to do a paranormal podcast. I just know it. And sure enough, you did. And I'm like, man, I hate it when that happens, but I love it at the same time. So that happened, and then we were on our call and we talked about it, and I'm just like, you know what would be the perfect title for a paranormal podcast? The Mysteries of Chaos and Shadow.
Boom.
Which is literally everything that encompasses the paranormal. It's all mysterious, it's chaotic, and it all takes place in the shadows. So it was perfect, and it ended up being the title that we just had to run with in that instant.
Yeah, no second guessing it either. Like, not at all. We were just like, this is
not even close.
And you kind of also did a great job, too, of talking. I want to throw this back to you in a second. But you kind of did talk us through a little bit about yourself and, like, you're doing the right and stuff. So is there a way you present yourself to people, Pagan, so they can know what you're into? Do you have a general kind of explanation to that?
I'm quirky and eclectic. That's a good sum up for me.
I love it.
Literally, I do all sorts of great stuff. I practice witchcraft. I tend to dabble more with the dark goddesses and gods because they deal with me much easier than the light ones do it. Don't get me wrong, I've worked with the light ones, they're fantastic. It's just the dark ones chose me. So,
I love it.
not by choice. They literally dragged me kicking and screaming, but it's all good. Um, oh Lord, what else? The paranormal, I've been kind of dabbling in since I was a child. I had a lot of experience as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with the paranormal kind of doing that, I was seeing stuff, I was experiencing stuff. I had a lot of really scary stuff happen to me as a kid, and I just kind of dove in headfirst looking for answers, and I've never looked back. So here we are.
I like that. That's a great backstory for it too. And I guess like you, my indoctrination to it was I grew up in a very creepy farmhouse that had a lot of paranormal activity on the property, and we lived in a very spooky area. We'll get into a lot of this on the show in the future because I don't want to spoil everything all at once, but just if anyone knows Western Pennsylvania, those are some thick woods with some creepy things, lots of battlegrounds there. And so that just always opened my mind to it. And I'd say, you and I, we'll get into this in future episodes, but you and I think really recently connected over a fantastic show on YouTube called Hellier.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely in love with it. And I feel like it really did awaken kind of something in me, like really truly kind of shook something loose where now I'm like way back on this course, or like it shook me back onto paying attention to something that's always been a big part of my life at times, which is just my interest in kind of like you said, the things we just don't understand that are out there. I'm very interested in UFOs and aliens and kind of all of it. I wouldn't say I'm an extremist or an over-believer in any way, so you'll notice I walk myself like a very middle of the line where I'm like, I choose to believe there's more out there than what we could see, because I really hope so. That'd keep me entertained.
Agreed.
But at the same time, I really want to make sure I'm looking at it with a real lens too, right? I'm not believing the little clinking in the next room when it's just the pipes moving around. I have that skeptic lens, but at the same time, a total believer at the same time. So
I'm exactly the same way. Like I will, when it comes to paranormal stuff, I will first go, huh, that's interesting. Is there a legitimate reason for this? If not, then I'm like, okay, we might have some spirits visiting today, which is very common in my household. Very common. We have a lot of spirits that stop by, a lot of cool stuff, which you'll get to hear about in later episodes.
Yeah.
And you get to hear about all the childhood adventures that I've been on. I'm sure Kyle has tons of childhood adventures with paranormal stuff. So you'll get to hear about lots of cool stuff. Lots of cool stuff.
Yes. So without further ado, let's hit our very first learning thing in this episode, which is to talk about what is paranormal. Because we toss this word around, but normal, meaning extra, outside of the normal. And we got live science's definition here for some formality. So paranormal denotes experiences that are outside the norm and beyond scientific explanation. Even so, these events, from supernatural phenomena to extrasensory perception to ghosts to aliens, UFOs, and more, take on a life of their own in pop culture. So that's kind of a good rundown on that, Pagan. Thank you for snagging that for us.
And anybody who likes, the scientific outlook, live science is a great one. So
yeah, I noticed that. They had a really cool category. So I guess it kind of sets us up for the future, which is on the show, we plan on talking through cryptids. I've been reading the Mothman Prophecies book. It is not like the movie at all, by the way. That's my one call out for today. Please don't be like, I watched the movie, it's the same as the book. They are literally not at all the same thing. But the book is really good, especially on Audible. I'm loving it. So that'll be an episode for the future. So cryptids we talk, with ghosts, we're going to be looking at kind of just like events and things that happen out there in the world. That's a whole great category. We delve into so much is I guess the good news. We have so many documents and things to start looking into just in our first list we made, Peg. And I noticed that you added so much to it after I last looked.
The topics list? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's so much more that I have even discovered that I've made little notes. Like I'm that kind of, the cork board that you see up there, that's literally, I have notebooks that are like that, except without the string. But
Love it.
they're with random notes that are just scattered everywhere, just like, oh, this would be a good topic, and I write it down. And eventually I'll get it onto our actual topics list. But we have some cool stuff that I'm so excited to talk about. I can't
Same.
even.
Let's not wait. Let's dive straight in. So Pagan pulled this topic. I admit, I was totally confused when you presented this one to me. So Pagan brought up that there has been a rise of paranormal activity going on, I guess we could say since maybe the start of 2020, but specifically since the start of like the lockdown seasons, everyone's staying at home. What do you want to say on this Pagan? Because you brought
I
this
would
forward.
say, okay, so what actually started it is the start of 2020. We noticed this really big, especially in the pagan witchy communities, we noticed a very large energy shift. And anytime there's a big energy shift, it also doesn't just separate from the earthly realm to the spirit realms and the other dimensions and all that. It shifts everything. It's like when the earth kind of turns a little bit. Everything shifts, everything changes, and all that. So, when that came out I started kind of looking at stuff, and I'm like, things are a little different. Things are not working the way they're supposed to. Even the spirits that are around my farm and around my house, they started behaving differently, and they started being sometimes really active or not here at all, which was very strange. And so this kind of made me start digging deeper. And then COVID hit, and the world literally went into this chaotic, terrified moment. And it wasn't just one country, it was everywhere. So at that point in time, especially when you're dealing with the pagan community, we will say, watch what you're feeling, watch what you're, sending out, because it can make things change. It can make things happen. Well, in the paranormal community, they say, be careful, don't go to an investigation terrified, because they feed off of that. So what happens when you have a world that is absolutely terrified at something that they cannot control? So what happens with the paranormal world at that point? At that point, I would say pretty much that it's going to have a massive shift as well. And Ghost Adventures did a 4-part miniseries about COVID and how it was affecting the paranormal around haunted objects.
Oh.
Which was a fascinating thing. So if you guys can watch it, go do it. I recommend it.
What was that again? What's the name?
Ghost Adventures.
Oh, okay. Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And then I started seeing articles about it. Where did we see our articles? It was, I believe, the Washington Post, New York Times.
Yeah.
Was it? And MSN. We had so many articles that were literally just stuff was changing. People were seeing more and more UFO sightings in 2020. There was so much going on that mainstream news was starting to report on it. When mainstream news starts to report on paranormal activity, I'm sorry if you guys can hear my dog whining in the background as well.
Louis just jumped out of his chair here.
So when they start reporting on that, then it's something that the rest of the world kind of goes, what's going on, and why are they reporting on this? At that point in time, then everyone should start paying attention. And I think that we're only halfway through 2020. I think it's going to get a lot crazier, and I think we're going to see a lot more activity, not just in the physical realm, obviously, with what's happening in the main world, but I think with what's happening in the paranormal and I guess you could say alternate dimensional kind of worlds.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting word to throw in here too. Which again, I admit I'm coming into this podcast very, very entrenched in. I guess I don't think this is the right word that the community uses. I'll have to learn this as we get into it. But I'm very interested in the more metaphysics-y aspects of it now, which is the breaching kind of between, what is a ghost sighting to a UFO sighting, and how are those two together. When I first heard that notion about 6 or so months ago, I was like, that's crazy. In my mind, aliens have always been nuts and bolts, and, ghosts are ghosts. But
Mhm.
calling them ultra-terrestrials is the way the Mothman Prophecies book actually sets that up. They are from something beyond our universe, I guess, per se, or they're in another realm, like you had mentioned. So there's a lot of crossover and stuff. We're going to talk about exciting things like that in the future. Skinwalker Ranch is a great example of that. Going from seeing
Skinwalker
Native
Ranch is
American,
so good.
yeah, you see Native American spirits there that are shapeshifters, and then the next thing you know, there's a nuts and bolts UFO flying overhead. So it's
Mhm.
like, are they just one force blending through it in different ways, or bleeding through, or are the aliens coming and looking at the skinwalkers? Like what is that link? But I think you're right. I think we're setting ourselves up, or nature somehow setting us up for an interesting 2020. Maybe that'll make for a cool Halloween this year. We'll see what happens around that time of the
Well,
year.
I mean, that's a really interesting thing that's gonna happen, because around Halloween is when the veil is the thinnest.
Yeah.
It's when, all of that paranormal stuff really comes into light because, when that veil drops, then the two walls between the worlds, the spirit world or the astral world, whatever you wanna call it, are much easier to see through. So it's easier for the spirits to pass into our realm and for us to see into theirs. So I think 2020 is going to be a really fun Halloween.
That's what
And
was
I
coming to
say
my
fun
mind.
elusively because it could be really terrifying at
Yeah.
the same time.
I was just thinking, yeah, if all the energy's high, all the trickster spirits and such that are getting angsty and feisty, they'll be out there for sure.
Oh, buddy.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Tempesters in chat calls out, says, I think it also helps with people being stuck at home and able to pay closer attention. I'm glad you're bringing this up, too, because I want to tackle this next,
Mhm.
Pagan. So paranormal incidents are being recorded a lot more frequently, they say. So that's one thing that I misunderstood when you presented this topic, too. I'd like to hone in on. You said that this actually started a lot of this before COVID hit, because the common thing when I saw some of these articles was like, okay, yeah, people are at home more. Again, if the pipes are creaking and they're not home at noon because they're whatever is running in the basement that they're not there for, is it
Mhm.
a ghost, or yeah, you're just not here for when that turns on. But you're saying this actually kicked in, especially before lockdown and stuff started, that the shift was
Yeah,
noticed.
it started from the reports that I saw, not just in these articles, but throughout the paranormal community. Something kind of the shift I think started around December,
Mm-hmm.
and it really started the winter solstice last year was actually pretty intense as well. And I think that that's when it kind of started the shift, and we shifted into 2020. And whatever happened, whatever this is, it's an interesting thing that all of the planets went into retrograde around the same
Oh,
time,
I remember
and
hearing that.
most of them were in this retrograde together. This has only happened like, you know, in the last 100 years, like twice.
Was the
And
last one the last
usually,
pandemic?
actually, it was right around the Spanish influenza.
Ah,
Yeah,
well, that's
yeah.
fascinating. If that's true, that's scary.
Which is really funny. My husband and I were talking about this the other day, and if the planets, the age-old saying of planets align and the stars align, and
Yeah.
ooh, crazy shit happens. Well, when the planets go into retrograde, retrograde is what was? Let me look at the actual thing.
Yeah, because I'd like to know. You look it up. This is something I hear the planets are going into retrograde, and I know that's a bad thing, but I don't know what retrograde is, Chad. I just know I don't want them in retrograde.
It is when a planet appears to go backwards in orbit. That's what I thought, but I wanted to double check before I actually made that,
Whoop.
statement. So it is when the planet appears to go backwards in orbit. So when, planets align in their normal orbits, good stuff is supposed to happen. But when it goes into retrograde, it's the opposite of that. So it's technically the opposite of their normal cycle.
Ah, so they appear to go backward
Mhm.
is the difference there. Ooh,
And
creepy.
everything can go into retrograde. Stars, planets, apparently comets. I learned this one recently.
Comets
I
can go.
didn't know. I didn't know comets could do this. This was a thing that one of my astrology witchy friends told me about. She's like, "Yeah, this one's in retrograde right now," and I'm like, "What is that?" She goes, "It's a comet," and
Uh,
I'm like, "They can do that? What?"
wow. Wow. I like it. See, that's all foreign to me. So hearing about that is very interesting. Getting some background in it.
Temptress, that's actually about 2 to 3 years old. That's actually been around for a while.
What's that?
The 13th star sign. We
Oh.
actually talked about this in my witchy Discord the other day.
Uh-huh.
So we can talk about witchy stuff another day on another podcast. So,
Oh, yeah, we
um,
can spend infinite time digging into these topics.
so yeah, totally. But when it comes to all of this, it's very interesting because one of the things I would really like to point out was on the Ghost Adventures episode, they had stuff that happened like the butterfly effect. For
Ooh.
instance, they had a Zach moved a mannequin
Uh-huh.
into a room that had paranormal objects from it was a boat. It was a boat that some lady got killed on. Her name's Natalie. I cannot remember the boat, but anyway, if y'all watch the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh.
Um, the original the now owner of the boat, his wardrobe, everything flew out of it, and he sends this video to Zach freaking out and shows everything on the floor. And he's like, all of it just flew out. And he's like, when did this happen? He goes, just a little bit ago. And he's like, I need exact timing. And they timed it to the moment when Zach moved that mannequin into that room.
Wow.
And it was very interesting. And he's completely across the globe. So, now it's like, something happens there. And is the fear and all of the energy that's being put out because of the numbers of death,
Mm-hmm.
the fear that's being put out, is all of these things causing these ripple effects, not only through the earthly realms, but through the astral realms and the spirit realms. That's where it gets really interesting to me.
Yeah, and and what I love too, because broken power supply, we got people throwing out all kinds of different things here in chat, and I love it because to me, the paranormal stuff, I mean, as we defined paranormal earlier, something that's outside the norm, beyond current scientific explanation, and I want to emphasize that, beyond current scientific explanation. I think that's the cool thing, because like broken power supply said, this could be all results of us observing the Higgs boson field causing simulation to display more checksum errors for participants, meaning the closer we're looking at the quantum scale, the more we're starting to see errors in the world. I mean, that to me that fascinates my mind too. For those that have seen Westworld out there, are we in the simulation theory? Just feels like I could jive with that so much. Like I could get behind some serious simulation theory where we believe we're all in this thing, and some of these events are going crazy and more out of the norm because the program's breaking down. For anyone that's played The Sims, just imagine yourself as the sim, not the ever feel like
Not
someone was
God.
yeah, ever feel like someone was currently stacking all the cards against you just because they're having a bad day? Well, welcome to The Sims, where I once made a man just live with
Welcome to 2020.
yeah, poor Sims. No swimming pool ladders. That's gonna be us. At the end of 2020, all the ladders will just disappear on the pools.
Do you think Zach screws something when he was screaming? I honestly,
Oh yeah,
Zach
read
does
that
like.
out, Pagan, for our podcast folks. Can't
Do
see it.
you think? Do you think Zach screwed with something when he was screwing around with that box in his museums? Now, are you talking about the Dybbuk box?
Ooh, what?
Because there's a lot of boxes in his museum, to be fair.
So why don't you tell people what a Dybbuk box is for those
The
that are?
Dybbuk box is a box that's from Jewish culture,
Uh-huh.
where it houses a evil spirit, usually demonic, and locks it inside, and it keeps it safe from it being all that. And it's usually sealed with some carvings and some wax and all sorts of stuff. I've seen Dybbuk boxes that were small as little chests that go all the way to the size of wardrobes. They're huge.
Big
And the problem with Dybbuk boxes is once they're sealed, they should never be opened, because obviously whatever is sealed inside, you open that box, you're letting it out.
Yeah.
Now, Zach is very, very, very known for playing with things he shouldn't do. He's touched Annabelle. No, don't do it. He's touched Roger the doll. He has touched he has a whole collection of haunted dolls, to be fair. But he also bought this Dybbuk box, and he decided one Halloween he was going to open it for shits and giggles. And he did. And I think that there's a there is a thing for him to, he keeps opening it and he keeps playing with it, and he shouldn't play with it, but Zach likes to push the envelope. That's what he does. It's one of the reasons that his show is so popular, because he likes to push the envelope. There's a lot of paranormal investigators out there that do push the envelope. More power to you. I'm not one of them. I've done that. I won't do it again. It was not fun. I don't want to repeat that part of my history.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that it's very possible that he could have opened that box and let something out, but he has so much stuff in that museum that's haunted, it's not even funny. There's probably hundreds of spirits just wandering those halls.
Maybe in the future we could look into like some of the things he actually has in there and kind of talk about that on stream.
Yeah. He's got a whole show about it.
Oh, good.
We'll talk all about it. I'm a huge Zach Bagans fan.
Well, good. I know nothing about him, so I'm all about it. I wanna get up to date on that and see.
I guarantee it.
Okay, I'm in. So we got a couple more of these pieces here. Not to veer too much off topic. So now some of these we get some of these, admittedly, that are in the New York Times or opinion pieces and stuff like that. So I think that's something we're going to tackle as the show progresses further and further through as well, is because the paranormal's not reported, I guess, most of the time to the mainstream. It just depends on the subject matter. We're going to be working with material that is open to interpretation, might be the nice way to put it.
Fringe, yeah.
Yeah, fringe material. So some of these things, again, we want to call that out as we go through and give it the proper setup, just so, because that's one of the things that always scares me off of podcasts and other paranormal shows myself, is how willing are they to bend, smear, smudge, or otherwise obscure how accurate something is from the reality. I think I was even talking to you about a UFO show the other day where they full-on forged a document from the government in the very first episode to make it sound like, I think it was making it sound like FDR had actually gone and met with aliens. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but the document they showed on screen and everything, I was like, I have to look this up. If this is real, I'm like, this is the smoking gun. It says, reading through the lines, he met with aliens. Look it up. No. So again, as we kind of see this stuff, we'll be telling you guys how accurate we presume these pieces to be, just through our lens and things like that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, continue.
I was going to say also, with a lot of the stuff that we're going to be finding, because it is fringe and all that, and it's hard to put a scientific spin on that without obviously going out and doing our own investigations to see if we can find that, which someday maybe Kyle and I'll get together and we'll actually get to do that. But that might be a long way down the road. But I think when it comes to that, this going forward with this podcast, it's going to be our opinions based off of what we're seeing and our interpretations of the things that we're seeing. So obviously our opinions are not based on fact. They are based off of opinion and our own experiences and our own kind of stuff. Come to the Ohio Reformatory. I've heard about that, and I'm going to decline your request. Thank you.
Oh, I'll go with you, Zombie Donut. Yeah. See, this is why you guys don't want to miss out on chat either. We'll get a little more streamlined, try and incorporate some more stuff as we go through. So I should also, I guess, shout that out again. We're on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Coyote Dempster Studios every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for the foreseeable future. That's the schedule. We're going to see how things work out. Like I said, we're just starting this out, so we're going to do a lot of kind of editing, pardon me, to the direction of this and all kinds of stuff. Going places in the future, though, would totally be on the radar for those in chat. Like, I would absolutely love that. So if you guys are interested, subscribe on Twitch, listen to the podcast out there, even if you drop a sub on that, super appreciated. All good.
Donos are also a thing.
Yeah,
just for the record.
Say again, sorry.
Donos are also a thing. Donations.
Oh, yeah.
If you really want to do this, I guarantee Kyle could probably set up a fund for it. But
yeah, if people want Pagan Kyle IRL paranormal time, we can make that happen through donations. Absolutely.
We can make that happen through donations.
So something that also I want to call out here is kind of our second topic for today, because it ties in and it kind of gives us a little bit of our extra time left here to discuss it. The question of UFOs becoming a threat and becoming a real thing. we talked about the more witchcraft or the more energy focused side of this earlier in talking about how that was affecting the pagan community and just people by and large. And one thing that's happening, I guess, more and more in the last couple months since lockdown is a lot more information coming out about UFOs and how much various governments have been looking into them. I say various because without all the headlines right in front of me, I have watched over the last, I'd say, 3 to 6 months, a lot more chatter hitting the mainstream media about foreign countries and their governments talking about UFOs. The Navy here in the U.S. has, I believe, put a lot more energy into making a more formal reporting mechanism for all of this. They've actually gone out, those videos that came out around 2016, for those that might have caught that, it's on the New York Times, but there were some, I don't know if it was cockpit cam, but they had some footage of UFOs that were caught by pilots. I believe they call them UAPs now, unidentified aerial phenomena. But yeah, all this is getting like weirdly legitimized, and I'm so interested. It's such an interesting time to be in the field.
The UK is also apparently releasing their X-Files.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. Apparently they've had for the last, I think it's 5 or 6 years, they had an X-Files department that dealt specifically in UFOs, paranormal activity, stuff like that. And apparently those UFO files specifically are being released to the public in the next few months. So those will be really interesting to look through and see, and kind of maybe do some diving in here on the podcast with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. I want to go out and see myself a UFO someday. That is something I've never personally had any witness to, is any strange lights in the sky that I can think of. Like, I remember as a kid, we traveled from Pennsylvania down to Maryland a lot to see family. And I remember seeing lights in the sky. But even nowadays, I'm just convinced, having been there more modern times, presidents and people of importance are flying all over with helicopters and all that jazz. And I was in that area, so I don't think I ever got to see anything creepy. But it was enough. It was enough to be driving those backwooded lanes as a kid, like in the back seat, looking out the window, and just all that sort of stuff sticks in your mind. Makes you wonder.
Which is interesting. I grew up in, rural New Mexico. And so basically you could go outside in the city where I lived, which was Union City. It was an itty bitty little country town. And you could see the stars. So it wasn't difficult to see lights and stuff like that.
Sure.
And the cattle ranch and all that, there was no lights. You'd go up there and it'd be pitch black outside, and you'd see stars for miles. And I did see some lights, but they were small. But it was one of those things that you could dismiss it as a helicopter, you could dismiss it as a plane, you could dismiss it as pretty much anything. So I can't legitimately say that I've ever seen a UFO, but I wouldn't dismiss that I have.
Sure.
I just may not remember it. So it's very interesting.
It is. I mean, honestly, until you just said that now, I forgot. I saw a shooting star not even that long ago. And it was so, I was just walking Louie, I'd say, my dog, about like 10 p.m. at night, and it was just so crystal clear across the sky. I was like, wow. But I kind of knew what it was at the same time. But it's funny how your brain archives that, because again, I was like, that's strange, shooting star, look at that. And totally forgot. Never mentioned it ever again. And that's something we might dive into, too, because as I'm getting into that book over time, they're talking about how people don't remember some of these encounters. Again, you and I are going to dive into talking about that show Hellier at some point. I guess I want to say, as we're getting kind of towards the mid to late point in this episode, my interest has definitely shifted into areas of high strangeness, where all that sort of stuff coalesces. So chat, as you guys out there are getting these stories, we want to make this accessible to people, whether you're listening on your commute to work, whether you're someone that's right here with us on Twitch. On Discord, we're probably going to get a spot set up where people can send in some links and things throughout the week. We definitely want to, later down the line, accept people's stories, just so you know the direction this show's looking to go in. But we'd love to do Listener Story Hour, where people either send us a written or they send in audio recording, and we can listen to that on the show, kind of dive into that, give our 2 cents on the topic. And Pagan, you've been talking a lot about setting up just various interviews with all these amazing different
Yes.
sources that you have access to.
It's really funny because I tell people I'm doing a paranormal podcast. And for instance, where my folks live and where I grew up
Hmm.
is about 5 minutes from the St. James Hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico.
Ooh.
So anybody who's ever looked into paranormal, you should know the St. James. The St. James is worldwide famous for its hauntings. My dad actually did the real estate appraisal on it. So we're going to get inside photos from the bar, the hotel rooms, everywhere.
Wow.
And my mom is actually going to get me the contact information of the owner. So hopefully we will be able to do an interview with the owner and actually be able to play that for you guys.
Ooh.
So it'll be pretty cool.
Hey, yeah, you guys, seriously, I don't know. When Pagan and I get to doing this, it just feels like there's a certain energy in the air, and I feel like more than ever, like we kind of said earlier, not begging for donations, but seriously, the more people are interested, even if it's just free subscribing to the podcast itself, that stuff will allow us to do more and more. It just, I don't know, it feels good that we have so much access to this thing.
Hmm.
I just have I'm coming in. I guess I'm coming in as like I said, a skeptical novice slash believer at the same time. You know, I'm so open to hearing these things. I want that dose of reality and logic to it, but I also just love anything that opens the mind. And I think that's why we have such fun things on stream just all the time where we're talking philosophy or psychology. Because once you look at the human condition from afar, we're very strange. We're very interesting. Our habits and how we choose to interact with all these events and how our own emotions might affect them is absolutely crazy. It's going to be a hell of a time to dive into this all.
Yeah, it's going to be such a good time. We also are looking into possibly doing an interview with a police officer who actually got a really great EVP, and a friend of mine who works in that department is actually trying to find her copy of it to send to us.
Oh.
And if you guys have if you have EVPs, if you have video, if you have stories, join the Discord, submit them in the Discord, because we
Yeah.
would love to hear them. We would love to talk about them. We'd love to, if you guys want them shared on the podcast, please let us know. We would love to dive into that kind of stuff. This isn't just, ooh, we're going to find something cool to talk about this week. We have a lot of topics. We will never be short of something to talk about, but we
Right.
always want to hear from our audience. We want to hear from people, because you guys also make the stories kind of go. I think that, you know, as in the coming weeks, Kyle and I we talked about moving across the country and talking about the different paranormal hotspots
Oh,
and the different
yeah.
cryptids and doing all that cool stuff. So as we get to those areas, we might say, hey, we're going to be talking about this area coming up, and you guys can submit some cool stuff in the Discord for that.
Yeah, I love that. That actually feels like a great way to go about it is, again, we were just talking, how do we want to tackle, how do you go about talking about the paranormal? And one thing that Pagan, I think you called out and made really great about this first episode was we didn't want to just sit here and do an essay on what is the paranormal. We wanted to talk about, this kind of rise in activity because it's vague enough that it sets us up to everything else. But going through geographically does seem like a really smart way to do it, because you get the hauntings that kind of overlap each other in different regions, the ones that are completely different, but there might be a connection to that you don't necessarily see. And that's one big thing, too. When you're looking at these kind of shows, you have shows that tackle ghosts or aliens. They don't often, like, the fields don't shift a lot. They tell you what they're going to be looking for, and then they find evidence or lack thereof in that one thing. But there's so many stories that go around it. So if we tackle things geographically in addition to just pulling in all this other stuff, it gives a chance for people. And I guess I wanted to ask, next week, Pagan, you and I tossed around some ideas. What are you thinking about for next week's show?
I'm thinking that we should start in the Northeast. Start right up there in
Ooh.
the main area and work our way down the East Coast, start working our way west, and, end in the Pacific Northwest. And I think that would be a great place to do that. Then we can start branching out to obviously different locations around the world. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a good time. There's so much stuff that we have planned, so much stuff that we want to talk about, interviews that we want to do. The list just goes on, and the more that you guys kind of subscribe to this and feed into it,
Yeah.
the more that we'll be able to actually do this and get those interviews pulled off. So
Absolutely.
definitely,
Yes,
it's
yes,
going to be a great
yes.
time.
So if anyone, I guess, out there, I mean, this is going to be the early stages of this, kicking this off, but if anyone out there is in the Maine area, it sounds like where we're going to start up there. So as you are in that space, or if you're going south from there, if you're living south from there, get those stories ready. Again, we're going to take some audio submissions in the future here. For right now, if you guys want to save them to something in written form, especially something that you can keep kind of succinct, so that we'd be able to read out loud on the show. I guess a good way to do that, too, is also read your own thing out loud if you get the chance. It always kind of helps you gauge how long of a thing you've written. But we'd love to dive into them. You know, we'll probably highlight, cut, copy parts out that we really want to touch on and all that. But, yeah, give us those stories, because we're going to start tackling some really fun, because you and I have also been playing a lot of Fallout 76 on stream.
Oh, yes.
And that game has a lot of baked-in West Virginia lore. So, again, Mothman, Flatwoods Monster, all this kind of stuff. Pagan and I are on stream playing that a lot of the time. So if you're interested, again, more of a reason to come by Twitch and get in on that action. But I think, Pagan, we should probably look at cutting it short. We only got about 15 minutes left. By the time we tell all these folks where they can find us, I think...
I think, yeah, we're going to be right on time.
Plenty good. So the most obvious, like we said, just on Twitch here, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you're overseas, you might have to pop it into a converter. I know UK is about 5 hours ahead of Eastern right now, so whatever that math is.
For BST, that would be 1 a.m.
That's a creepy hour.
Standard time, because for my time it is exactly 6 hours. So that I'm pretty good at that. And I know like Norway is 7 hours.
Yep.
So
you guys are getting it right in the middle of the night at the good time to listen to a show like this.
Good time to listen to the spooky stuff.
Yeah. So what are you doing, Peggy? You're running our actual... Oh, I should give them the one last thing. The Twitch link is twitch.tv/Kyle Studios. All of these links will be in the description below for you, whether you're watching this. We're going to get these up on YouTube and in your podcast player. But Pagan is kicking butt on social media. Why don't you tell us about what you're doing there?
I run the Twitter and I run the Instagram. Those... you can also find the links at the bottom of this and here in the Twitch chat. If you do !paranormal, to take you to our link tree, which will obviously take you to our Instagram and our Twitter. If you guys want to go drop those a follow, we would greatly appreciate it. You'll find all the good stuff about the episodes. You'll find where to find those episodes. You're going to find just various kind of paranormally kind of cool stuff that I'm finding throughout the week. Updates, and you'll also find conversation topics that I'm posting up there as well. Twitter's a little easier. It's probably going to be updated every day, at least once. I'm trying to get Instagram. Instagram's a little harder because you have to find the image to go with it.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to do that, please, submit your stuff, submit your stories to us. You can talk to us on Twitter. You can talk to us on Discord. You can talk to us on Instagram. We are very chatty folks. We love to talk about the paranormal. So please submit all your cool stuff. We want to hear everything.
Isn't that the truth? Indeed. We want to make this interactable. I guess I will say that too. So people out there on the podcast side, I'm not one for pushing a particular podcast player. I'm not about that life. But this show is going to be up on Anchor. So for anyone that has the Anchor FM app, I do have, for the very first time, that feature enabled that lets people on their phone record something for us of some length. I apologize, I'm a total noob. But check that out. Our show would show up under there. It'll give you a submission form, so you can actually send in your audio copy. It should be really cool. I've never played with it. Why not give it a shot? Also, the email is a great one to call out, which is mysteriesofchaosandShadow@gmail.com, because we'll take submissions there. Yeah. Pagan, earlier you mentioned the Discord. I don't know if I gave him a link for that, but discord.gg/KDS. Follow the welcome channels through there, 1 through 4, and you get set up with a role for it. That's where we're going to expand that channel out. For anyone that's not used Discord, it's a chat room style thing where you can get to us throughout the day and stuff like that. Why don't
Yeah, we have some good stuff gonna be going in the Discord as well.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to be putting some cool stuff in there. I may also put some links to the tweets in there as well. So if you guys are missing those tweets because you just have a lot of subscribers or you have a lot of people that you're following,
Yep.
and sometimes Twitter just makes you lose stuff. So I may put some of the really cool ones up in that Discord channel as well.
That'd be
So
great. Peggy, on the way out, why don't we tell them a little bit about our projects outside of here too? So you're active
yeah,
on Twitch.
definitely.
Why don't you tell them what you're doing, and with your witchy podcast on the other side too?
On Twitch, I do Terror Tuesdays, which is horror games. Right now I'm playing through Dying Light. On
Ooh.
Fridays, I play Fallout. And on Saturdays, I paint. As if you were watching this, you can see the painting that I'm working on behind me. I have a great art store, so if you guys want to do that, I'm Pagan Wolf 13 on Twitch. You can also find me at Pagan Wolf TTV on Twitter and Pagan Wolf 13 on Instagram. And I also work on another podcast, which is Witches of East Twitch. It's here on Twitch. We're looking at getting it up on different platforms such as Spotify and also on YouTube. It's still in the early stages, but we talk about all things witchy, all things paganism, and all that cool stuff. So if you want to know more about that, check me out on Twitch and Twitter. And I'll get you guys some links.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good time.
Yeah, let's put all that below too. Especially, I don't know if you have yourself a link tree, Pagan, but if you get one of those, that'd be good too.
I
Oh,
do have
good.
a link tree.
Good. We'll slap that in the bio for people. Myself, if you're watching this live, you're already on my stream, twitch.tv/Kyle Studios. It's been an insane summer, so I'm working on redoing my schedule here, but it looks kind of like I've been starting the streams up around 4 p.m. Eastern, then we do this as part of the stream. So if you want to come by early and see some game action, also just open to chatting about anything, good time to share stories. And that's, in fact, why I really was motivated, and I guess way before Pagan and I talked about this, is the fun stories I've had on Twitch sharing paranormal encounters and stuff. And everyone's got their own story, so we're just bringing it together. We're putting it all in one place. And yeah, weekly on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. You
Did
can
you talk about your news podcast on Fridays?
Oh yeah, I should talk about that. Thank you. That one's a little bit rough because I don't have all my links set up. But we do have a show. I think tomorrow's when we're kicking off with the name. But on Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, doing a video game news and tech review sort of thing with my good friend Stark Realm. He and I have done a podcast before in the past, but we're linking up again, same time, just different day here on Twitch to talk about just anything that piques that geeky interest from culture, movies, whatever. We're just doing it all. And then soon that's going to have links for it as well. But we're going to get all these nice and intertwined, and people be able to find one easy spot to shop for it all. What do you say, Pagan? Any other parting thoughts for the folks today?
I don't think so. Check us out next week. We're going to be starting in Maine. So if you have any good Maine paranormal stories, cryptid stories, alien stories, whatever in the paranormal realm, pop them in the Discord, pop them on the Twitter,
Yes.
pop them anywhere. We want to hear them. We would love to know about that. If you have a cool topic that you want us to talk about, also send us that because we can work it into a later show as well. So
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely.
so much for being here. And thank you all for letting us explore our cool paranormal geek sides because, Kyle and I can do that on our own, but eventually I think we'd get bored with each other, maybe.
Yeah. Probably
But
not.
sharing it with the world is so much more fun.
Mm-hmm. That is right. So, folks, thank you for joining us again, and we will see you next week, this time, same place, all the links below, all the links where you can find them. Thank you so much for listening, and catch you next time. Bye-bye.